everybody. It's the Greg. Yes, the Greg on Motivational Monday. How you doing, everybody? I hope you're excited. I am jacked to the highest jackticity today to give you what we got, some goods, some good meat and potato, I hope. Meat and potato. We want something to stick to your ribs, man, that you can take you with you all week long to give you that energy that you need for the week. Hell yes, everybody. Hell yes. And today's topic, we're going to talk about sales. Oh, do I love sales. Let me tell you about sales. But we're not going to get into it right away. We're going to first jump back because last week has a little bit to do with sales. Know your customer. Know your customers. I talked about the 4 personalities last week, the whale, the dolphin, the shark, the sea urchin. You know, if you're waiting on a dolphin, dangle a carrot in front of them, they'll bite every time. It's easy. They're excited. Make them feel part of what's going on. You know, if you're a shark, though, man, don't pick a fight with a shark. Don't pick a fight with a shark, man. That's the last person you want to pick a shark with and a fight with, unless you're a shark too, and you're going Shark Tank on each other. I love it. I love it. Yeah, 4 personalities last week. You want to check it out. This week we're going to talk about sales, but we got to fix what's broken first. You know, again, we got to go back to the first 7 years of our lives. How many no's did we hear? We're going to talk about that again here in a little bit. How many no's did you hear? How many? And how about this? How about hearing this? This is what you heard too. Never take money from a stranger and never talk to a stranger. I told you we were going to fix it. I told you we were going to fix it. It's broke, ain't it? It's definitely broke because you don't even know. You don't even know what you don't even know. You know, I always say to people, I know how to drive a car. I don't know how to fly a plane. But how many things that you don't even know that you don't know? That's the scary part. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to shake it up a little bit. And think about that. You were told never to take money from a stranger. Never talk to a stranger. But you're in sales. How do you loop around that? I had a situation when I was growing up. My mother always talked about, I love my mother, don't get me wrong. I don't want to hear, you know, she's a very spiritual lady. But she always said it was harder for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get to heaven. She would always talk in a way that, to me, was inappropriate about rich people. You know? I mean, after all, the number one cause of crime is being broke. It ain't about being rich. You know, you can't fix it. So that's the way I look at it. But you know, she looked at it as the rich people, and she would talk about houses and if we were in a rich neighborhood and this and that. And it formulated, which later I realized that I didn't want to offend my mother, or I didn't want her to not like me if I became too rich. She did thank me one time, though, after taking the family out to dinner and paying for everybody's dinner bill. She did thank me. Thank God someone in the family has money. I thought, so well, okay, at that time, and there's more now, and that's great. I hope the next generation always goes farther than the first generation, and it should be. We pass the baton on to the next generation in my family, always. And some of them listen to this, so that's really great. And I appreciate each and every one of you. But, you know, it ain't broke, and we got to fix it. It's broke. Never talk to a stranger. Never take money from a stranger. Maybe something our mother or father said about money, the way we look at it. A lot of people, I've seen people make a lot of money and then lose it. You know, it's like there was no worthiness to it. You know, you weren't worthy of it, so they would lose it. They would fuck up their whole situation just on the basis of worthiness. You know, you're worthy. You deserve to have it all. You deserve to have that and more. You know? But I was talking to my grandson the other day about this because he asked me, what are you going to talk about this Monday? And I told him about sales. And I talked about that. And he goes, wow, Papa. He said, man, you always help me to break away from the programming, you know, to show me how much the programming, you know, how much I'm programmed. And I said, yeah. I said, think about it. Think of it in terms of a coloring book. We were told we had to stay inside the lines. We had to stay inside the square. The sun always had to be yellow, and the sky always had to be blue, and the grass always had to be green. You know, I just watched The Matrix again the other day, and watching that, I started thinking about that in the coloring book. And I thought to myself, well, hell yeah. They even told us what color the grass was. From the early on age, we were told this is what the color of grass is. So, of course, the color of grass is green. But to me, in the way I think, now you call this crazy thinking, but I think it's, again, outside the lines. I think if enough people looked at the grass and thought it was purple, that it would change to purple. Church. I got a little church going up in here. It would change to purple. That's what I think. If enough people looked at the grass and believed that it was purple, man, wouldn't it be cool if we had a purple grass? When we were growing up, they told us the grass was purple. But we're programmed in so many ways because, get a good job with good benefits, go to school, get a degree. That's all, a lot of it's programming. A lot of it. It doesn't mean that it's bad to do. But the Matrix really, I watched it again the other day, and I call it a documentary. Some people call it a movie, but I think it's a documentary. And AI is going to need a lot more energy in the future. So you might want to watch that movie if you haven't. It's a great movie. I watched it a few times. And just to understand there is no spoon. That's the way you have to look at it, because we do live in a matrix. But the thing that people have a problem with, the word they have the problem with most is the word no. Again, going back to that, how many times we heard it when we were a young man, a young woman growing up. The no in that first 7 years. No, no, no. I think we're so afraid of that word no. It's a form of, like rejection. A form of rejection when you hear the word no. You're rejected. I think it goes back to our tribal days. A man, a woman was rejected from the tribe, cast out for months, years, forever, based on the severity of their crime or, sin or whatever they wanted to call it. And I think it's in our DNA. I think we carry things in our DNA and our memory muscle. If anybody works out, you understand about memory muscle. You could train your body, when you're in your teens, and you just pop, lay off for 3 years, gain weight, the whole 9 yards, and turn around and start working out again. Your body will go right back to it. It's got that memory muscle. Well, think about how it works in a longevity of of us being here, for how long the people have been on the planet. I think that memory muscle, I think we take that on. And I think rejection, especially for men, is very hard to handle. Very hard to handle. But think of that word no, too, man. People can't say it. They can't say it either. They're afraid of the word no. They can't. They fear it because it comes at them, but they can't say it either. I had managers that worked for me, guys that worked for me, and they could never say the word no. They always say they were yes people. And I always say this, if your yeses mean nothing until you can say no. Your yeses mean nothing until you can say the word no. You got to be able to say the word no. But people are afraid of this word. Think about it. Think of it this way. Telemarketer, scam calls. We get them all the time. Why? Why? Why do you think it works? It must work or they wouldn't do it. So they prey on the people that are weak, that are lonely, that are in a lot of fear, like I talked about last week, that answer that call. They can't say the word no. And they prey on that. They prey on the weak. That's why come on, I get 20 scam calls a day on my phone. I don't even answer. Maybe not that many, maybe 3 or 4. But I don't answer them, not a one. If I had a telemarketer, it was always fun back in the day when you had a landline, and a telemarketer would call and they want to talk to you, I would just immediately hang up. But I would watch people at their houses talk to them for a while first. They would talk to them. And then they would get around to saying, well, not right now, and bang. No, I would just, bang. You got to be able to do that. It's funny how people can't, the word no, how it scares them. I say that your no's build you and your yeses build your business. Your no's build you and your yeses build your business. Go out and get massive no's. Massive amount of no's. I say if you want to really build that skin, that toughness, and not worry or live in fear, Go out and get massive rejection. I always say that to guys even when they're dating girls. You know what I mean? They're afraid of girls. Go get massive rejection. You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. My one guy I hired, he was a hell of a good salesman. He told me, you know, he'd hustle down at the concerts when people left the concerts drunk and stuff. He'd make a good amount of money. And he said, you know, if you ever want to be a millionaire, just ask a million people for $1. And I thought, damn, that is a smart guy. And then I had another guy that would work for me. Now, he claimed, I don't know how true this is, but he was selling sweepers, that you would have to present the sweeper in your skivvy only. You know? And he said, now I don't know if that's true or not, but I also know he was one hell of a good salesman. And he would stand at the door waiting for the next customer to come in, and he would tell me that he was thinking, they're going to buy, they're going to love buying from me. They're going to love buying from me. And they did. They loved buying from this guy. It goes back to the one book I was reading. I think it was The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, I mean. He said the car salesman would sit in the car before he came into work and punched in, you know, or engaged with a customer. And he would say, people love buying from me. People love buying from me. People love buying me. I think you put out an aura. You know, in sales, you put out that you can be the smartest in the class, but if you can't sell it and present it, most likely you won't get that job. It's that person that can talk. I've been to a lot of different places where they've had in the back of the room in these places I went for personal growth, self-development. Jeffrey Combs was incredible out of California. I just want to give a plug to him. Love him big time. You know, it was always somebody in the back of the room though that had was a voice coach too. I'm sorry. Sometimes you can't sell. You might need to work on that. You know, my voice tells me I was made for this. Some people have that voice. It tells you were made to talk. You know, I was talking to my nephew about that. I said, the guy in the room, and I mentioned this about body language. I'm going to leave with this, and we're going to go back to it. But think about sales this way. The guy in the room that thinks the least, the guy in the room that thinks the least is the most confident man in the room. It doesn't mean he doesn't talk as much. What it means there is the one that's being present the most. Be present at all times. I remember reading Alexander would practice moments of being present. I think I'm going to leave you with that, but we need to get over our fears. You know, your yeses mean nothing till you can say no. And thank God for trick or treat, because you can get candy from your neighbors without your mom and dad getting mad at you. Y'all, I want to thank you for tuning in to the ISM here on Monday Motivational. You guys have a great week. Meat and potato stuff. And we'll talk to you next week. Ciao.